Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program. My name is Dave Nershi. I'm chair of the Professional Development Committee. I'm joined today by Andy Harris and Corey Solomon, both board members for IFWTWA. Corey conceived the idea for today's program and put together our distinguished panel, who you'll meet in just a few minutes. So we have a great program in store for us today, and we're going to now turn it over to Corey Solomon, who will kick off the program. So Corey.
Hi, everybody, and I think you're going to really enjoy this program. We put a lot of work into it. I'm very excited about it, and I'm also excited about how many people are joining us. I do want to mention one other thing that David forgot. If you have a specific question for one of our associates who are joining us today, please note that in the chat box when you ask your question. You all should have gotten a list of all the questions that we have prepared. I did that so that you would know what's coming down the line and you wouldn't have to ask a question necessarily. So now I'm going to begin by introducing each one of our associates, all IFWTWA members that are joining us today on this panel. They're not in alphabetical order, it's just the way I got. So I'm just going to start. The first one I'll introduce is Deborah Wakefield, and she is the Vice President of Media Relations for CityPass. Do you want to say a quick hello so everybody sees your face? Okay. The second person joining us is Jenny Wedge, and she is the Director of Public and Community Relations for Travel Costa Mesa, which is also known as the City of the Arts. Jenny, you want to say hi?
Morning. Thank you for being here.
Okay, next is Dan Howard, the Director of Communications from Park City Chamber of Commerce and Convention and Visitors Bureau. Dan, you want to say hello?
Greetings from the beautiful Rocky Mountains.
Next is Milton Howery, Director of Public Relations for Memphis Tourism. Let's say hello, Milton.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. Then we have Kimberly Munkres, the brand strategist from Palm Springs Preferred Small Hotels. Kimberly, do you want to say hello? Kimberly.
Hello.
Next is Amy Nestler. She's the Stewardship and Communications Coordinator from San Juan Islands Visitors Bureau. Amy, quick hello.
Good morning from the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, then we have Vicki Ashford Thompson, Director of Travel Media for Greater Birmingham Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here.
Okay, then we have Ashley Gates. Okay, I'm sorry. Creative Directors, Spotlight Marketing and Travel Medford, and also the Vice President of Rogue Valley Vintners Association. And finally,
Thank you very much.
sorry, Amy. I mean, Ashley.
It's a tough name.
Too many names to remember. Finally, we have Andrea Childreth, is the Marketing Director from Travel Medford. Andrea, do you want to say hello?
Hi there, we're here from Southern Oregon Wine Country.
Okay, so we're going to begin. Our first question, which everybody has, but I'm going to repeat it, and then I'm going to call on our various associates to answer it. Since travel has opened up, what are you looking for in a writer? I'm going to call on Jenny first.
Thank you. So I would say it's similar to what we look for on a normal basis when we're hosting media, but specifically since we're trying to open up safely, I'm being more selective, I guess, with people that number one, know our destination and what we offer. As you mentioned, it's the city of the arts. And we want to focus on a lot of outdoor activities that are spaced out. And so we want them to experience the things that we specifically want people to be thinking about when they're looking at a destination. So when they're planning maybe their spring and summer travel and throughout the rest of the year, what's available and how it can be done and visited safely.
Okay. Amy, do you want to add to that?
Well, I will second what Jenny said, but we're really looking for someone who will sort of go beyond the eat, stay, play type of writing and focus on responsible travel, but also, like Jenny said, how to do it safely in the pandemic era.
Okay, so we're going to move to our second question. In normal times, what do you typically look for in a writer coming on a media trip? Deborah, would you like to first answer that one?
Sure. Well, City Pass has 14 distinct destinations from New York to Southern California. So we're typically looking for someone whose writing style and interests will mesh with what the community offers. So for example, if we're doing a media tour in Tampa Bay, all of our City Pass attractions are very, very family friendly. So typically we would be working with family travel writers and bloggers. If we're doing a media tour in New York, those attractions are a little bit more grown up, MoMA, Met, Statue of Liberty, Empire State Building. So in those cases, we're usually working with people who are writing about female travel, girlfriend getaways, cultural weekends, that kind of thing. So we just want someone who matches what we are offering in each destination. And then we also work very closely with our partner DMOs in each city. So whatever key messaging they're putting out, we try and match writers who can also have an interest in that too.
Okay, now I'm going to call on Dan to respond to that question. And while Dan's on, I'm going to share my screen. Dan, are you there?
I'm here and I'm ready.
Hey, I may not be ready.
So we put together a bullet point. There are really three factors that we consider when we have pitches from media who are looking to visit Park City. And the first, we really want to understand your audience. And don't be afraid of the size of your audience. The most important thing is that you're an authentic influence in your community or your readership or viewership. And we just want to understand that. So don't overinflate your numbers, just share the real audience, because that's going to help us understand who we would be communicating with when we host you. So following the description of your audience, we really want to understand the angle that you're writing. And one of our most important things is that we don't want the same story coming, over Park City in every single newspaper and magazine. There are so many different angles in a destination like Park City and many others that are here on the call. And we want to know which angle excites you. So talk to us about what you're really looking to write. And in the course of doing that, you really may end up hitting one of our hot buttons without even knowing it. So talk to us about the angle that interests you. And in the course of doing it, you're going to end up telling us how aware you are of our destination. We like writers who know what our destination has, even if it's just a surface level. You don't need to go deep because you'll learn that when you're here. But letting us know that you know about our destination and therefore what the angle is will really show us that you're serious and that you're ready to go and that you've done your homework and that you may match exactly what we're looking for. So those are the 3 A's in a normal year that we're looking for when we talk to media.
Okay, I'm going to move on to this. This question will be asked several times because I want to get different associates' opinions. So we'll keep moving back to this question. What are some of your pet peeves when media visits media visits your area. I'm going to start with either Ashley or Andrea. One of you can pick since you're both from Travel Medford.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. You know, I am going to start off with just saying that it's not necessarily a pet peeve. It's more of a respect thing. And I think the biggest thing to understand and to keep in mind when you're visiting a destination and you've been provided a curated itinerary, that itinerary has been really vetted and worked out with our partners. And those partner relations are paramount for us. And so we're taking into consideration what they have going on in their life as well in that time of visit. So when we have a curated itinerary, it's really important to stay on itinerary. And that is in terms of being, you know, conscious on time, but also not veering off the path. Obviously, we want you to have an authentic, organic experience, and we really want you to be able to immerse yourself in the region so that you can pick up those little tidbits. But it is really, really critical that we stay on itinerary and we don't kind of, you know, oh, well, that's a cute place over there. I'm just gonna jump over there real quick, which can throw everything off. There's just a lot under the iceberg that goes into creating an itinerary. So I think if there was one major thing that upsets a DMO and or PR person and or partners, it would be veering off itinerary. And I think it also expresses or showcases that you know a lack of understanding of what's going on behind the scenes, which can then be frustrating and and then that snowballs, right? So I would say for us, that's definitely key.
I'm going to add something to that, listening to that, and I'm going to use, since you're our wine specialist here today, I know that when I visit wineries, I kind of know my time frame that I need to visit, and sometimes I've had them shorten that time, and because you're trying to get a story. Should we up front tell you you'd like between, you know, I'm going to use an hour to an hour and a half with each vintner? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it would be, it's crucial too for you to communicate with, you know, your skill set. And if you know, you can get it down in 30 minutes and you want to move through and get to more locations as opposed to immersing in just one or two or three for a longer period, that would be really helpful to know. Because we're pulling typically the winemaker and or the owner and or the vintner out of their workday, right, to sit with you or to go through a flight with you or take you on a tour, etc. So when we're communicating with them, it's great to say, you know, this person's only going to be there 30 minutes, then they can schedule around that. Or this person, you know, we want you to spend a solid hour and a half with this person.
Okay. I'm going to move on. Vicki, do you want to respond to this, the original question, not what I had it in?
Sure, I agree with Ashley 100% about the itinerary, trying to stick with the itinerary. My basic thing I said when I was answering these questions was time, and that covers all of that. Another thing that that I kind of, this is after the fact, whenever journalists always let me know that they're going to send me the finished product and I don't get it. And I have to, someone in my office kind of looks up stuff like that, but it's cool when they let me know that it's coming or make sure they send it to me, because I usually make sure I show these articles to my board when they come in or whatever, if it's a blog or whatever. I like to share that with them. One of the other things that's really has gotten out of hand at some point in time is people bringing extra people other than the spouse or their partner. I don't mind if a family comes, if it's a family focused article, but again, we have to make sure that, you know, it doesn't cost the journalist anything, but and attractions are entered into for free. But when we're talking meals and transportation and things like that, it could get a little out of hand. So we just like to know that ahead of time if we're going to have to deal with more people than we currently. And people generally ask, but sometimes people just show up with extra people, and that can create a problem.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question, and we will come back to pet peeves later. When we pitch a trip or an idea to you, what would you like to see in our pitches? Milton, would you please respond to that?
Yes. So when you pitch an idea, well, first of all, anyone who sends me a pitch about my destination, I'm excited that you're even interested, number one. Okay, so I'll start there. So I'm excited. But number two, I would like to know a little bit more about the story, the angle, right? I need to know what are you planning to write so they help me understand, how to help you and how to assist you. So, and so in your pitch, it should say your story angle. It should say also the timeline. So also, is this an exploratory story or is it a confirmed story? So that can, so I can understand, because if it's exploratory, then I may not be able to help you in terms of giving you all the amenities of the destination, but I still can assist you with attraction access and some discounts, some things. Versus with a confirmed placement, then my media, not media outlets, but my partners in the destination be more than likely they're going to sign up and say, hey, I know this is coming out on such and such date, and they're going to be more willing to help. So in the initial pitch, it is really to make sure to show the angle. I get a lot of incoming now where I'm having to say, okay, where's the story angle and where will this be published? And I'm having to do all of this. And my initial email just says, hey, I'm a writer, I'm a travel writer, and I'm coming such and such weekend. I would love to visit. Like, okay, what is all the other information? So, so I think that part of it, I know I see some seasoned people on here that I've worked with before that I have not had that issue before, but you'll be surprised at how many people that do come through. So I initially say I can talk for a long time, y'all, but I'm gonna say it is initially the story angle, the timeline of the story, and when you're planning to visit, which will help me to respond appropriately.
I'm going to add to that, Milton, what you talk about an assigned story versus exploratory. If we have our own blog that we write on and it's not necessarily assigned, does that fall into the exploratory area?
So no. So in that case, it's still confirmed because if you're confirmed that you're going to feature it on your blog, so that would be confirmed. But in this case, what I would need in your pitch, I would need to know information about the audience reach, and a little bit more information about your blog if it isn't just one of those already national known media outlets. So if it is a blog, because and honestly, it is not always about the audience reach. It's just as someone said earlier, it is about, are you a respected influencer in your field, in your market, or your subject? And so, so you are definitely confirmed if you are guaranteed to cover it, but we will need a little bit more information on the outlet.
Okay. Continuing on with pitches, Dan will be taking this question. When evaluating pitches, what is most important to you, Dan?
Well, I mentioned the importance of a unique angle. And I think that when someone shares what they like to write about for any other destination, it tells us where their passion is. And we just love that your voices communicate to your audiences in very sincere ways. So tell us what it is that you love to write about, and so we can match up every visit to be unique with your visit and make sure that we're getting you the angle that you need so that you can share what's most important to you.
Vicki, I'd like you to also respond to this question.
Sure. Much like what Dan said, generally Birmingham is known for civil rights and food. So generally, there's not a lot of pitching going on. They just, most of the time when people contact me, they have already laid everything out, and they have a place for the story. So they don't have to really sell me on a visit. So with that being said, I have to look at circulation, readership, followers, and that type thing, because I know that it's a good story and they're going to make it a good story. But I just want to make sure that, there's an audience that is a nice size audience, not so much in number, but I guess substantial followers or readers or the circulation is something that we can kind of sink our teeth into.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next question. Do you want us to include a media kit when we pitch, or fill out the media forms, including what is most important to you? Kimberly, do you want to respond to this one? And Kimberly has something I have to share with everybody.
Sure. Yes, so everything everybody has said about their pitches, what I like to see, we do have the media form, but I really do like to see some sort of profile or media kit. And I really like to see it accompany that email pitch with all those things that Dan and Vicki talked about. And when I look at those media kits or your writer's profile, I really look at your brand lens or your focus. What differentiates you? What's your perspective? What's your style? Words like authenticity and passion were used on this panel. That's what I want to see in that brand lens. You know, what is your thing? I like to see your target audience and demographics. It's not about quantity. It's really very much about quality. And then of course, obviously all the meat and potatoes, links to your blog, your social media pages, what are your hashtags? What are your metrics? I mean, I really like to see engagement. If you may have a small following, but you may have a really super passionate following, I love to see that. If you have 3 to 5 article links that are sort of related to the story that you're pitching, that would be helpful. Obviously, list of publications for which you write. I like to see, I love little mini case studies. And I know this sounds like a lot of work, but it really pays off. So if you have a case study that shows what a successful collaboration looks like for you, because we do look at this as a collaboration. I love that. If you can show value or outcomes, you know, sometimes a story, you know, we were talking about this the other day, sometimes a story may not have a lot of initial impact, but it may be evergreen. So it has a long tail, and you can talk about, you know, a story that you wrote 2 years ago that over time has amassed, you know, conversation. It's been referenced. It's been, you know, that's important. And then of course, testimonials and your contact info. Some people do this as a PDF and email it. Some people have it as a page on their website. It really doesn't matter, you know, kind of whatever works for you. I will tell you that in our case, we are not a destination per se. The Palm Springs Preferred Small Hotel Group represents all the boutique hotels in Palm Springs. So we function a lot like a DMO in that we put together curated visits, and we can pretty much expand or contract, you know, however you want it. But our hoteliers really want to know if they are going to get what's in it for them.
Okay. I'm going to move on. I just had, sorry, someone was in the waiting room. Okay, so our next question, which will be answered by Melton. In filling out media forms, what should we concentrate on? What portions of the forms are most important to you?
So on most media forms, like if you go to memphistravelwebsite.com and submit information, it's going to be very limited on what you can input in the form. So immediately on our form, the first thing that I look for is the date that you're coming and the date that you're planning to visit the destination. And usually those are really the only people that really submit the form. I prefer most people actually to find my email address because it's on the same page, same window, like the same space where you can find the form, you can find my email. And so I actually prefer the email. That way you can include all the information that was just talked about in the media kit and all the things that you should include. And so, so I would say on the form, it's to get to the straight, if your form doesn't allow you to include all of the information, then the one thing you definitely want to put in your date of arrival, again, go back to the story and your purpose for the email. It doesn't need to be too drawn out about all the other things in your background if it doesn't allow you to provide that information. But the most important thing is going to be the form is to get to the purpose for reaching out. And then if they need more information, include your email and we can reach and follow back up. But that's what I look for in a form. It's a time period and the initial reason for reaching out.
Okay. I'm going to go back. I'm just going to mention a couple of questions in the chat will be answered. They're on the list. They're further down, especially the ones on social media that have just entered. So the next question is, do you like to see sample articles? And if so, how many? Deborah, do you want to start by answering that question?
Sure. I love to see 2 to 3 articles that showcase what your interests are and your writing style. But I would say, please make sure they're from this century or this decade. I have gotten articles from people that, are 15, 20 years old. So that puts the onus back on me to do some research and make sure that this person is still writing, still has outlets that they're contributing to. So love to see the articles, but would prefer to see something that's recent.
So in this case, if we do have one article that maybe is older, show us the newer ones and then give us a little bit, tell us why they put this older article in. Would that help?
Yes, that would be very helpful. Sometimes people have written about City Pass before and they've done Chicago City Pass. Now they want to experience New York. And so they'll send me a previous article that they've done on City Pass to see how they covered it. And that's totally legitimate.
Okay. Amy, do you want to respond also to this question?
Deborah, you really hit kind of the nail on the head, but I would say, especially if you're a freelancer, show me a couple of different sources. And yeah, kind of like Deborah said, show me what you're interested in writing about, and try and choose something. If you have a destination you've been to that's similar to ours, that's definitely what I want to see.
Okay. Also, would you like, some of us have different styles of writing. So in our examples, do you want to also see the different styles of writing?
Yes.
Okay. Jenny, do you want to also respond to this question?
Sure. I'm obviously echo what the other 2 ladies had mentioned. And having those articles as examples really helps us feel that you're more invested in our destination, I think. So you're thinking, oh, I've kind of looked into what Costa Mesa is about. Here's some things I've written that I could see designing a new article or guide about that would kind of be similar. So you can get a feel of what the end result is probably going to look like. And then definitely tying in what your interest as a writer is that would be a good fit for our destination. So I definitely think that having that backup is a really helpful way for us to, vet people that want to visit.
Okay. Next question. How do you track the numbers or analytics we give you? Milton, I'm giving that one.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lots to say about the analytics and data and all that. And honestly, I can say, there's a difference. I would like to say that how some people may go about doing that. For the most PR professionals, we're using software, if you're familiar with Meltwater or Cision or Trendkite and places like that. So when I receive a pitch or email from a journalist, blogger, what have you, I immediately in that introductory email, I honestly will admit, I will skip over everything else and grab that link to know exactly where you are starting out with the audience reach. And so I literally can take that link, I can plug it into Trendkite, and it will tell me, it will verify if you have exaggerated your media kit, or it'll tell me if it is spot on. And and I honestly have to say, most PR professionals, we don't look at it as the end and say all. We understand that there's that there could be glitches and there could be errors and things like that, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. And so that's what I use. So for instance, TrainKite gives me the value of a print. If you're planning to give me if you're writing an article for a printed publication, then I'll use Cision for that. Cision, those of you familiar with them, Cision and TrainKite have both merged, but they still have two separate portals, or I guess you can say platforms that still kind of operate independently. But then I use Cision to look at the print ad value for it. And that allows me to gauge, because at the end of the day, I have to have the analytics. It gives me your audience reach, but also gives me a dollar amount that says, hey, if I spend $1,000 hosting this journalist, that is going to give me an ad value of $3,000 because their story is going to be published in these publications. And of course, it doesn't always equal out, because the ad value may be $50, but really that article was shared 300 times or 1,000 times. So and so that's way more than so it doesn't always equate to just say, hey, I should just go with spend the amount that TrainKite Decision says. It's really basically just having a starting amount of understanding of where I can start and the basis of expectations that I can pretty much use by using analytical software such as Cision and TrainKite or Meltwater.
Okay, I'm going to go back to, I think this is a good break to go back to pet peeves for a minute. I'm going to ask Amy, do you want to say what your pet peeves are with us?
Sure, thanks, Corey. I'm going to try and keep this short. I really only have two big ones, and it's sort of very similar to what other people have said, but just be very clear in your communication with us. If you have what your needs are, if there's some mobility limitations or something, anything medical, like please tell us so we can be prepared to accommodate that. Excuse me. And also, comes back to researching your destination. We are a very small island community, or islands community, and those chefs, wait staff, tour operator, those are our friends and neighbors. So if they, for any reason, have a bad experience with a writer, I'm going to hear about it, and it will damage our relationship with them, and it makes it very, very hard for me to ask for something later.
Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question.
And I'm going to end up giving the same answer. It's so important that the itineraries that we've created are kept to, and we work really hard to verify our itineraries with our incoming journalists prior to arrival. We try to give you plenty of notice so that there's time to go back and forth and adjust if we're not on the same page. We want you to have the experience that works for you. But once you've agreed that this works, it's the toughest thing is when, and you heard it earlier in this conversation, you see a little shiny thing and say, oh my gosh, I want to try that. And it's too late for that at that point. We've really got to have an agreement that the itinerary that we've put together and shared is the one that you'll be having. It's the toughest thing for a CVB and impacts how we work in the future with our community.
Okay, and Jenny, do you want to respond to this one too?
Sure. I think that along with what everyone else said, we do put a lot of time into these itineraries, and I try to make it a two-way situation so I can talk to you about what you know and what you might want to experience so that we're getting things in there that are going to be beneficial to both of us. But going off of the itinerary or not doing the things that are on the itinerary, I would want to know why. And if you're in destination and all of a sudden you figure out you can't make that dinner reservation or meet that docent for the tour, we need to know that, because then they're asking me where you're at. And so, I think these seem so obvious for people that are visiting, but when we set up a reservation, it's, we're really counting on our partners to come through on their end, and we would like you to come through on your end. And if you can't, just communicate with us. I'm always available by cell phone when you're in the destination. So if something changes in your plan, I want to know so I can let my partners know and nobody's inconvenienced unnecessarily.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. And this one's going to Amy. When we receive a swag bag, do you expect us to write about some of the items? Example would be wine, local food, or a product your area is known for?
I would say that really depends on the kind of story you're writing. Our swag bags are, we actually don't even think of them as swag bags. It's kind of it's a welcome gift. We want to give you sort of a taste of our destination. You know, there may be things in there that, you know, maybe you don't have time to visit that place. So what we want it to be authentic. And so if it fits your story, absolutely, please write about it. But if it doesn't, you know, maybe it's just in social media and it's, you know, picture that bottle of wine of, you know, because you're enjoying the sunset, you know, off our west side. Like that's really what that's about.
Okay, next question. What is the proper etiquette when a CVB DMO is slow on responding or does not respond to a media inquiry? Milton?
Well, good question. Well, I will say, really gauge when you should follow up based upon the urgency of your story. So if you know you want to get this on your blog and you are on a deadline and you have 2 weeks and I haven't followed up in 2 days, yes, please reach out to me. But and, you know, and it's kind of the pet peeve too. If you reach out to me in around Christmas and you know you're not coming until June, and then you keep bugging me in January and February about an itinerary, that can be that's not proper etiquette. You know, I would say, hey, if I've confirmed with you around Christmas that I want to host you, and then we can, as time gets closer, let's start discussing and building out your itinerary. It's more appropriate to that, you know, more so as March approaches, if you know you're going to be coming at the start of summer or spring. You know, because the destination could change. I could have a new hotel open by then. We have so many things happen. There's so many different experiences that I might curate and be aware of, or it might be a new restaurant or something I might do. So I would prefer to actually, you know, hold off on that, you know, but that also depends on your story. So, you know, there are some stories that I've had that I've had to do a little bit more earlier planning because of all the things that was needed for it. But I would say, you know, as much as we pitch you all on stories, we have that same amount coming back, not necessarily from journalists per se, but from all the other things that we're all responsible for. And so I would say, you know, the proper etiquette is please do. If you don't hear from me, it's okay to follow up within, you know, based upon the urgency of your needs. Is engage that based on when you should reply.
Kimberly, I'm going to have you respond to that too.
I agree with everything that Milton said. And I also just want to point out too that sometimes, you know, inquiries do end up in my spam folder or something. So if you haven't heard from me in about a week, you know, definitely follow up just to make sure. I try to get back to everybody within a week, you know, whether it's a yes or a no. But, you know, if I don't see your email because it's in the spam folder, then, you know, it doesn't exist in my world really. So do follow up in about a week.
And I will say every PR person is going to respond to a journalist. We're going to respond. So if we said nothing, we probably didn't get it.
Right, right.
So that answers, I see one question right now in the chat, so I'm going to bring it up right now, is Kathleen Walls wrote, related to when DMO doesn't respond, why? I personally would rather just be told up front, I can only do whatever or even nothing instead of letting me hang there, then say no help. It kind of goes along that maybe they didn't get the email and that you should email again.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. You know, there have been times where I look back a month later going through emails, just seeing that it's just checking my email and just spamming through, saw something I read but completely forgot about because of I had to do another activation for the city or something happened and I just never saw it and the person never responded back. So I can tell you, you know, in the travel industry, we're always looking for unique ways, and every opportunity is an opportunity to tell the stories that we're telling for our properties or destinations. And so we're going to respond, whether we can help a little or a lot. We're going to respond if we see it.
Well, I think also, because I know I have an experience that with IMM, I had spoken with a CVB and we talked about when, and then I heard from another writer, her inbox was like, had over 2,000 emails, so we have to also remember that just like look at all the product and the various things we get email. I know I get over 300 a day, not necessarily all on travel, but a CVB or a DMO gets many too. In this case, Kathleen responded, this would be when they get and give vague response. So she's saying when someone responds from a CVB or DMO vaguely.
Yeah, that's a.
Go ahead.
We may have associates
Go
here
ahead, Kimberly.
who are very good on responding quickly versus the situation you've had, Kathleen.
I will
And
admit.
I think people sometimes just, what Corey said something really important. For some of us, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. And so when we're vague, it may be something like, there's something intriguing, but we're not sure, I know for me, I want to think about it. Then a million things come in since that email came. And, I'm not even thinking about that query. And, so I would just say, follow up. If it's a destination you're really interested in, follow up. And if it's happening to you repeatedly, you might want to kind of have somebody look over your pitches, because maybe there's something in how you're presenting yourself where people are just not quite sure. That's just a thought.
Yeah, I was going to say if it's similar to what Kimberly just said, if it's vague, it may be something that I didn't understand fully and haven't had the opportunity to fully dig deep into it, but want to respond so that that I'm here and I hear you, but I don't really have the moment to fully investigate. But yes, that sounds great. I'm gonna get back to you.
Okay, I'm gonna now move on to the next question. What is a reasonable expectation on time frame for coverage for your CVB or DMO? I'm gonna have Deborah be the first to answer this question.
We are not especially picky if it's an evergreen article. If I've worked with someone 6 months ago and all of a sudden an article pops up, it's usually a wonderful surprise. So no real expectations on time frames for evergreen stories. But if it is something that's perhaps tied to a specific holiday, Mother's Day travel, spring break, that kind of thing, then I would love to see that at a minimum 6 weeks before the event or the date would happen.
Ashley, I'm going to ask you, I'm bringing it, and we're going to get to Dan, but Ashley, on the wine perspective, if there's sorry, I can't do anything about this phone. I can hide it. Sorry. Anyway, in the wine perspective, if it's like a special wine day, how far in advance should we have? And I'll use like National Rosé Day is coming up in June. Can you tell us when you think an article should come out for something like that? Or if there's something else, like you've got Oregon Wine Month right now. When would you like to see articles come out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think Andrea would have a really good insight here. She's definitely our specialist in strategy and rollout. I would say in terms of wine though, obviously, like everyone's saying, we are just drinking from a fire hose all the time. I don't know if that's how everyone else is, but it's definitely how it is in our region. We have a very small team. So the more in advance that we can get the information, the better, at least a month, potentially 2 to 3 months in advance, so we can kind of coordinate.
I have a bad connection, so I'm gonna let Andrea take that over in terms of the wine.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also, some of these DMOs and locations are really established, right? And the Rogue Valley and Southern Oregon were sort of new. And so if you haven't been to the wine region yet, and let's say for Oregon Wine Month, we want you to come and cover it, it would be like right at the beginning of the month so that you're able to show the experience, and those who are closer, who can get to the area, can get up here. If you have been to the area and experience, Rogue Valley wine, and our, let's say, Oregon Wine Experience is coming up in August, we'd want it to be beforehand, because your articles really provide a lot of credibility as journalists. That's what I love about using journalist articles, is that you give us credibility, right? Our DMOs, and instead of us as marketers just tripping off about who we are. So I think it depends, Corey, upon whether or not they've visited the destination with wine, whether they've tasted it or not, because that's all what it's about, is the experience, and giving more details about it.
Now, Dan is going to also respond to this because, as we know, Park City is more seasonal. So Dan, do you want to respond to that question?
That's so true. And each article really is focusing on one of 4 different seasons and different experiences. So based on the interest, and if you are visiting, let's say, for example, you want to cover fall and you haven't ever been here in fall, you're going to visit in fall, but we're actually not going to expect to see the article until the following summer to promote upcoming fall. So in a seasonal destination like Park City, we're looking to 6 to 9 months out from visit to delivery if you are there covering a specific season. We really are hosting visitors all winter long here this past year in hopes that their article will come out by November of this right before next year's ski season. So you have a lot of lead time to gather that article in terms of, expectation. And we'll kind of talk that through prior to your visit when we hear about your angle. And just to reiterate what Medford was saying, we need at least 30 days prior to arrival to know, that you're here, because we can't get this stuff set up in town when you call on the Friday and say, we're coming this weekend. It's just impossible. And in our case, we are looking at a 6 to 9 month connection between your arrival and when you might publish if you haven't been before.
Okay, on to the next question. When on a media trip, is it appropriate to voice a concern about a specific issue, and to whom should we direct this concern? Jenny?
Yes, so if it's an emergency, let's say you check into your hotel room and a pipe bursts, well, let the management know right away so that they can come handle it. But I would want to know if it gets taken care of and you go along with, the rest of your trip or your day and let me know later, that's okay too, as long as there's not a major impact, because I wouldn't want it to affect your overall visit. Same would go for visiting one of our attractions, or if you weren't given good customer service, or you weren't treated well, I would definitely want to know that, because that affects the whole overview of the destination if you have one bad experience, and we want to be able to address that. And so I want to share that back with the partners that maybe had that interaction.
I'm going to add to that, and I had my own experience. Is I was on a pet friendly tour, and so we got into the hotel very late, so I couldn't deal with it. But I walked into my room with my dog, and my dog is smelling all over the floor, and I can smell all over the room that it smelled like dog urine, and it reeked. And I think that in that case, I could not write about the hotel. That was, and so in this case, I did go to the who was leading it, and I said, I can't do it, because this was not, I was up half the night with that awful odor. So I think we've all, when that happens, we definitely should come to you and let you know where our concerns are. Anybody else want to add to that, knowing my wonderful story?
Yeah, I would just say for me, I like to provide my journalists and bloggers and influencers. I always say, hey, I am open door. So you have my cell phone number, you have my email. I'm always around. I'm always reading emails on the weekends, even when I shouldn't. So you should always immediately, like Amy said, if it's a pipe, something immediate in the hotel or somewhere, address it there. But also, I would then like to immediately send me a text, a message, just let me know how your experience is going. So that way I can, reach my contacts who may not be aware. Even though you're in their hotel, so I prefer it to be, I've had only, I think, one incident that I can remember that stood out where I had the hotel, one, they charged his card, double charged his card. And so that happened. And so that found out towards the middle, halfway in the trip. And then that happened, and something else, about 3 or 4 things happened with this hotel. And I was always on the back end. So I was always like rushing to fix. And I was like, let me know day one that you have an issue, as well as contact the hotel. That way I can be advocating to make sure that we kind of fix that experience immediately.
Okay, I'm sure we've all had, I could name about 5 instances where I've had that I had to call behind the scenes. Andy will remember when our rent-a-car was, the hotel backed our rent-a-car into another car. So we had to have that dealt with. And so I think we've all had certain experiences, and we learned to, it's go with the flow. Okay, next question, because we're getting towards the end here. What is the most important, what is more important to you, the article, social media, or both? Ashley or Andrea, do you want to answer that?
We believe both is. So for social media, it's really creating awareness, and it's also creating interest, right? And the article is giving all the special nuggets and information about our destination, and we can share both. As a DMO, we can take your social media post and share it onto our platforms. Same with your article, we're able to take it and share it onto our platforms. Maybe share it if you're willing to partner with us on our website, in our e-newsletter. So both are equally important to us.
Okay, Amy, do you also want to respond to that?
Well, yeah, I will just add that for us, it really sort of depends on what your story is and kind of why you're visiting us. If you're here for an event, we hope that you're doing some social media before that, while you're here, and then maybe after you've left, sort of like, oh, this is to talk about your experience. But then the article is really where I can, and I'm sure the other associates on this call will understand this, justify my existence to where I will share that with, the members who have hosted you, with our board, to say like, hey, here's what you did for us. This is what came out of it.
Okay. Carrying on with that, with social media, what is your expectation of social media posts while we are attending a media trip? Vicki had to leave, so I'm going to have Andrea respond to that, and if anybody else, sort of let me know.
Take that one, Corey.
Who's that?
I can take that. It's Ashley.
Okay, go
if
for it.
Everyone can hear me. In terms of posting instantly or after the fact, I think it depends largely on the article that you're posting and or the content. One, because we do like to have organic in the moment, but I also understand the need to edit and to brand or create a formatted story, which is very much appreciated, because then you have the time to tag all the necessary people and get all the right elements in there that allows the other partners and DMOs to then share. It's not as helpful when you're just in the moment and it's a picture, but there's it's not appropriately designed for shareability. So I kind of like to see both, but I actually would prefer after the fact. and for it to be a bit more professional and curated and edited. And so it's right, you know.
Our final question, except I thought of a question while we were doing this, but we'll hopefully have time because I want to. There's one very good question in the chat that just came through. Do you review comments made on our blog or social media posts? And Kimberly, you were going to respond to that. And granted, we know some of you do not on your blogs allow comments due to spam and things like that. So this is just a general.
Yes, we do. We really like to see a combination of sort of social media as it's happening and, you know, a nice kind of wrap up after the fact. But we do track social media. Blog post comments, honestly, not so much. It just, unless it's a kind of an unusual or very high profile blog, you know, most people have their comments turned off. So I don't really track that too much.
Okay. So does someone want to tell us really quickly, and then we're going to go, I think we have like well, we have a couple questions in the chat, which I'll turn it over to David and Andy, about what goes into, we've talked a couple of times, what goes into planning these itineraries? It's not just a simple thing that takes, 5 minutes, you know, it's a lot of back and forth. And does someone want to address that? Because I forgot to put it. Okay, Kimberly.
Because we're Palm Springs, we're in a little bit of a different situation. So we have, you know, all of Southern California, which includes LA and San Diego. We have Arizona, we have Phoenix, you know, and we have Las Vegas. So we get a lot of, you know, influencers, and we just can't do last minute stuff. But what's great about our small hotels is we can accommodate whatever kind of itinerary you want. I'm actually good with writers who want to do maybe 1 or 2 things and hang out by the hotel pool all day, because that's what a lot of our visitors do when they come to Palm Springs. So it can take me anywhere from, you know, a day to a week to set up a tour, depending on how many people and how many changes. I like to have at least a month because, like everybody has said, we have to negotiate everything out. And it is exhausting. It means we're trading on our relationships. And we hear about it if, you know, the article is badly written or there's an issue. And so we really need to, we need to have that time. But it is just, it can be incredibly time consuming. And every time a time changes on the itinerary, it's a domino effect. So I have to reshuffle everything. So that it can be really challenging.
I want to jump in on that one. For Memphis representing a destination, for me, one of the most creating itinerary challenging part is making sure that I've created a diverse and inclusive itinerary for my destination. And that's one thing where a lot of times I have the pitch may be focused on our key signature attractions, which may be food, Graceland, Bill Street, all the things music Memphis is known for, but there's so much more. So for me, it takes a little bit of time to say, okay, how do I capture the essence of the city, but also make sure that I've included other partners who don't get as much attention, but who are also great. And so for me, that's the time that I actually, that takes a little bit more time in thinking and working through sometimes with my journalists, is that inclusive piece to make sure that we've not just cookie cutter a itinerary, but make sure that it was inclusive, diverse, and tells a different story.
Well, adding to that, I know, and I like this because Kimberly just did this with me and Andy last week, is along the way, she kind of gave us a partial itinerary so we know what's happening and we could give our input. So.
Yeah, I like to do a draft itinerary, and I like to leave holes for people. Like, for example, with Corey, she really had, you know, she had some things she wanted to do. So I just left this morning is available to you, or this afternoon for you to fill in whatever you want to do. And, then we kind of, the night before, it's like, okay, this is what's set in stone. And, here's your, fluidity. And we're happy to do that because we look at this more of a partnership. We want to be able to accommodate whatever it is that you want to do, as long as it intersects with what furthers our organizational objectives.
Okay. David and Andy, do you want to start with the questions?
Yes, Corey. We have several questions regarding social media. The first from Scott Kendall. What are some specific things you want to see from our social media before, during, and after the visit? Platform preferences, number of posts, type of posts, timing of posts, and so on. Are people that are really interested in social media, maybe Milton, Kimberly, if you would.
Well, when it comes to social media, for me, I look at social media as, for one, your article is most important because it gives me the content to share on my social. It gives me the content to talk about on social media. So without your article, I don't have much to share. So there's that one. Then number two, as you're visiting the destination, I definitely, I really, truly, unless you're here for a time-specific event. So for instance, like I'm hosting a concert series in June. I would love for the journalists I'm hosting them to talk about the experience because that conference is going to kick on. That's the kickoff of it. So it really depends on what you're here for. And so if you're here for a more evergreen kind of experience, then I would, I don't care if your post is after you visit or during when you visit. But those social media posts is definitely important. But for journalists, I really am more concerned with your article, and the post is just a bonus for me. Unless you are an influencer, then I'm really dialed in on, okay, what are you posting on social media and looking at your analytics and all that.
Thanks, Milton.
Okay, and then following up in the area of social media, we have a question. I'm going to combine two of the questions here. If your links are all on the website, rather than posting links, would you accept a link to the website? So somebody comes, visits you, does an article or maybe a couple of pieces, and rather than giving you specific links, they send you one to their website. And then the second question, or I'm combining the two, is how important is social media which is short-lived versus a longer-lived SEO optimized and well-written blog post?
Who would like to answer that question?
Well, I'm just going to say we love well-written, well-optimized well-optimized blog posts. I don't think there's anybody here who would disagree with that. And, I like to see, I think it really has to be authentic to the person who's doing the writing and to the destination. Some people are not natural on social media, and that's fine, but their blogs or their articles will be just perfect. And, that's fine. And other people do better, with the social as they go. So I think it really just depends on what's authentic to the writer and also whatever the agreement is up front. My recommendation is to negotiate that up front. Say, hey, if I'm coming, I'll do, 2, social media posts a day, or I won't do any. Just manage expectations up front. And I love it in the follow-up when people just provide a link to all the posts, all their articles, and they do a nice tidy wrap up at the end, because that means I don't have to go dig it all out. I do it, but it's just one of those really sweet and appreciated things when a writer says, hey, thank you for, coordinating this with me. And, oh, by the way, here's a link to all the social that I did. And, I'm like, wow, that's just amazing.
I'm going to interject a second because I think, David, the first part of the question was not related to social media, but was related to our media kits and providing, I may be wrong, but providing links to our articles. And I think what Kathleen Mesmer was asking is, can we just give a link to our website where you can see all the links to our articles?
Okay, good.
Yes,
So thank you for
I love
clarifying.
that. Yes, I love that. When the link is fine, as long as I can click it and read it, it's all there. You know, I actually, whenever I'm individually looking to even do a pitch myself to a journalist, I love that I can go on their site and find everything I need there. And so, yeah, I would say if there's a link, it can be provided. It doesn't have to be in a PDF form in my inbox. If you just got a link that I can click, that works.
And I know I always give the link to my website, but then if I have specific articles I want you to see, I'm going to give you those too.
Perfect.
All right, back to
Courtney,
Andy.
we have another question. I think this is one you were actually referring to earlier, and paraphrasing it to all our panelists. In terms of visiting journalists being vaccinated for COVID-19, is that a question you're going to ask? And Dan Howard has already responded to that, that's not something that, you know, they're going to be pursuing. But we'd like to hear from some of the other panelists on that, please.
I don't ask, but I really appreciate people letting me know.
Anybody
I'm
else?
with Kimberly on that. I don't ask, but I do love it when you randomly share, but I don't ask.
Okay,
Yeah.
and following up on that, I'll ask this to the group. Do you anticipate offering group press trips later this year, or are you more likely to work with writers on individual trips, or will you be doing both? And also, when they're on a trip, do you like journalists to use the hashtag hosted?
Palm Springs is currently mostly arranging individual trips. We will be hosting a travel writers workshop in the fall, and probably an LGBTQ tour. That'll be a small fam tour, but if that'll probably be really the only real fam trip I'll be doing this year. Everything else will be individual one-offs.
Rogue Valley. Oops, I'm sorry.
We aren't doing any media tours probably until 2022. Our budget needs to recover a bit more.
For Rogue Valley, we've got, we have one planned for just probably a smaller group, so not really large. We've got Heart of the Rogue Festival starting. It's going to be our first year in October, you know, featuring wineries and producers and Harry and David and Rogue Creamery and all the good fun things. So we'll be asking actually from IFWTWA, I'm working with Deb Stone to do a request for writers. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested in looking at Rogue Valley and giving us a pitch.
I also know that Visit Birmingham is planning a small one for October with IFWTWA. Vicki and I talked about it yesterday, and Vicki had to leave. She had another Zoom meeting. Go ahead.
I
want to say Memphis.
Go ahead, Milton.
I'm sorry. Memphis Tourism is hosting a music focused FAM June 3rd through June 6th. So it'd be music writers as our goal. So someone that writes some music. So it's not necessarily a travel, but if you are a music writer in here and can tell the Memphis music story, we're trying to connect our goal is to connect our music legacy with our current music scene. And that's not necessarily saying that it's travel, but just saying what's happening currently, the artists who are recording here, the experiences here and things like that. So music writers, we're looking for June 3rd, June 6th. And I am still hosting individually. We don't do a lot of large fans. We do pop-ups for specific things we're promoting here and there. But we do like individual. I tend to think that you can authentically have a better experience on your own, and we welcome that.
I will second that, Milton. We really focus on kind of independent travel writers. We will do individual press trips. And just to circle back to the COVID question, right now I am asking that only because then I can report that to the members I'm asking to host you, but we are not necessarily going to confirm or deny you based on your vaccination status. Same thing with the hashtag hosted. We actually prefer you don't use that just because it feels a little more authentic, and our community sentiment can be a little bit touchy around tourism and travel writing. So if they have any sense that we've helped you, that sometimes comes back on us.
David and Andy, do you want to move to the next question?
If we have time for one more good
Yeah.
question
We're
from
going to
Elaine
go a little over.
Masters. Yeah, Elaine Masters asks, do videos count as much or little than articles? YouTube versus Reels, stories, etc.
I love YouTube videos. And here's why. YouTube is the second largest search engine. So if I had to pick if I had to pick, I would always take a YouTube video.
And with that, I'm gonna, unless someone else has something else quickly to say, I'm gonna say thank you for everybody. Thank you for joining us.